Great quality Xerox.
The mystery man behind that Texas shooting rampage which killed 22 and heated up the gun control debate.
We hear guns don't kill, people do. Tell that to the victims of those 22 citizens that are dead today.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, reporting tonight from NBC News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. It was so swift, so cold-blooded, and so bizarre, many of the people of Killeen, Texas, still are in shock following the shooting rampage that killed 22. And the gunman who committed suicide, he bought the guns legally in Nevada. But what drove him to this madness? NBC's Jim Cummins tonight in Killeen.
Today, the authorities said in all the confusion during the massacre, 4 police officers were shooting at George Hernard and hit him several times before he committed suicide. Killeen Police Chief F.L. Giacomosi now says Hernard had 2 semi-automatic pistols, not one, and may have fired almost 100 shots during the melee, many of them at the police.
Had the response not been as prompt, I'm sure you would have seen higher fatalities in Luby's itself, because those rounds that were directed at police would have been directed at patrons had they not been there.
Police know what happened, but they still don't know why. More details about Hernard emerged today. He was unemployed, lived alone in a house owned by his father, an orthopedic surgeon from Houston. Police say they found nothing in the house that tells them why Hernard went on a rampage. But the neighbors are talking.
This guy's a weirdo. Badly.
Hernard bought his last breakfast at Nancy Mead's convenience store. She remembers a recent incident.
He pushed one of our customers out of the way. She was up at the counter trying to write a check, and he just came and pushed her aside and walked up, put his stuff on the counter, and he walked out of the building just last week sometime and spit on one of our customers' vehicles.
Hernard mailed a bizarre letter to neighbors Janet Jernigan and Jill Foote.
Please give me the satisfaction of someday laughing in the face of all those mostly white, treacherous female vipers from those 2 towns who tried to destroy me and my family.
He said in the letter that he would get his revenge on all the vipers in the end, the female vipers.
Hernard's anger toward women was evident during the massacre, according to Ann McMullen, whose husband Sean was wounded by gunfire.
And he said that he can recall a hand, and he asked the lady a very unusual question about, do you think it's worth it? And then he called her a name, and then he shot her.
14 of the 22 murder victims were women. One surprising development, 19-year-old Mark Matthews, who worked in the kitchen at Luby's, was reported missing. Today he was found inside the dishwasher where he had hidden overnight.
I was very frightened at the time. I just hope God he don't find me in the dishwasher.
Meanwhile, Killeen is trying to cope with the sudden loss of 22 people.
Who else? Do you know Steve Doty? He's been shot and killed.
People here are only beginning to recover from the shock of the massacre. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Killeen, Texas.
This mass killing came as the House of Representatives was debating a new federal crime bill, including amendments on gun control. However, as NBC's Andrea Mitchell reports from Capitol Hill now, gun control, well, those are still fighting words in Congress. Andrea?
Tom, it will take more than the worst mass shooting in American history to break the National Rifle Association's hold on the House of Representatives.
Gun control supporters lost by 70 votes, despite the overnight conversion of the congressman who represents Killeen, Texas.
We cannot stop all mass murders, but I believe with your vote, we can take assault weapons out of the hands of drug kingpins and crazed criminals.
Supporters said Killeen was only the latest and worst of the massacres. They talked about Louisville, Kentucky in 1989, 7 dead, 12 wounded. Within the last week, 4 dead in Ridgewood, New Jersey, 4 more slain in Great Neck, New York.
All but a few of the mass massacres have occurred in the last 10 years, and it's all due to the ability to be able to fire a great number of rounds very rapidly at a large number of people.
Today's bill would have banned 13 types of American-made semi-automatic assault weapons. It would not have outlawed the Glock semi-automatic pistol used by the murderer in Killeen, but it would have banned the 17-round clip that permitted so many shots to be fired.
I don't need an assault weapon to go out there and kill a deer. The fact of the matter is nobody needs an assault weapon except cowards and criminals and weirdos who have to own an assault weapon in order to feel like a man.
My deer rifle, my Winchester 308, when modified with a larger clip, is eligible for condemnation under this law.
His rifle is not banned by this legislation.
It is
period,
if
no
it
matter
is
what is,
modified with
no
a
matter
larger
what is
clip.
added to it.
With
no
a
matter what
10-round
features
clip,
are added
it is
to
illegal under this bill.
We are led to believe that we need an assault weapon to go out and kill Bambi.
But gun control supporters were no match for the powerful National Rifle Association.
The answer to the crime problem is doing something about criminals, not about the implements that they choose to use.
Earlier this year, the House did approve a waiting period for handguns, but today's legislation was too direct a challenge to the hunting lobby and the NRA. Tom?
Thank you, Andrea. When Nightly News continues in a moment, we'll find out who commits mass murders, why there are more all the time, and what can be done once the shooting stops.
The muscles of the neck, back, and legs run in a vertical direction. So Infiniti stitched the seats of the Q45 the same way, making it more comfortable and driving less fatiguing. At first, you may not notice the luxury of something as small as a stitch. But to Infiniti, what's important is that somewhere down the road, you will.
Don't get hit by an annual fee. Carry the card that doesn't charge one. And keep yourself out of the hole. It pays to discover.
It's kind of throbbing, and sometimes my fingers get stiff as well.
Today, it isn't aspirin, it's Advil for minor arthritis pain.
Advil just really helps with the pain.
Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
The Killeen rampage is just the latest episode in a tragic and recurring American nightmare, mass killings by a crazed gunman. Jack Levin is a professor of sociology at Northeastern University in Boston. Professor Levin has co-written the book, Mass Murder, America's Growing Menace. Why is it a growing menace, Mr. Levin?
Well, you know, it's really an American phenomenon, Tom, but we have growing resentment in all quarters of society. There's a proliferation of firearms in the hands of many people who shouldn't have them. And finally, I think we have a lot of people who are very much alone. They've traveled thousands of miles for the sake of a job. We have a 60% divorce rate, and they have no place to turn when they get into trouble, so they resolve their problems in mass murder.
Is there a common ban on all of this about who's committing these murders?
The typical mass murder is committed by a white male in his 30s or 40s, a middle-aged fellow who has accumulated frustrations for a long period of time. He has recently suffered a loss, perhaps the loss of a job or the loss of a relationship, and he knows how to use a firearm. He has it when he needs it. If he didn't have the firearm, he might go to sleep. Instead, he kills large numbers of people.
Professor Levin, a lot of these guys demonstrated weird, bizarre, threatening behavior before they begin to pull the trigger. Could they not be headed off?
You know, unfortunately, hindsight is 20/20, and all of these bizarre symptoms were reported after the massacre occurred. Sadly enough, there's no way to predict who will become a mass murderer. There are millions of people who have bizarre habits, eccentricities. They're strange. We can't lock them all up. We'd end up locking up most of the people in our major cities. Then what would we do?
Thank you very much, Professor Levin. Before the carnage in Killeen, the worst mass shooting in American history was an episode 6 years ago in San Ysidro, California. That one, you'll remember, was called the McDonald's Massacre. 21 people, many of them children, were shot dead at the restaurant before the gunman was killed by police sharpshooters. It was a calamity that traumatized survivors and the entire community. Joining us now from San Diego to talk about coping with such an ordeal, Dr. Michael Mantell, a clinical psychiatrist and an expert in treating victims of mass trauma. What should the good people in Killeen, Texas be thinking about tonight, Dr. Mantell?
Well, they should be thinking about recovery and rehabilitation. This can be a story of hopefulness and helpfulness if people will join together in support groups and recognize that it's important not to hold in their feelings. They should be recognizing that when the psychological Novocaine wears off from yesterday and that stage of disbelief begins to fade, they're going to be feeling some pain and anguish and anger, maybe even some guilt. And the only way to get past that is to talk it out and work it out. Join together.
Should those support groups be organized by mental health experts in the community?
Absolutely. I think that'll help a great deal. But by the same token, people should feel that they can help themselves by getting together. Friends and family members, co-workers, they can get together and talk it out. In addition, they need to talk about what they're going to do with that site. I think that the Luby Corporation needs to bring the community people of Killeen, Texas together to help decide how to memorialize the victims.
And what happens when the media leave town?
Well, when the glare of the lights goes away, I think that the folks of the town will realize how deeply they've been hurt and how much they have to rely on themselves. And they can do that by understanding that it's going to take time. It's going to take months and maybe even years. A year from now, 2 years from now, people will still be feeling the pain. And so they have to be willing, again, as I say, talk it out. Don't hide your feelings. Don't keep it in. That's the mistake that many people make, and symptoms develop months and months later when people hold it in.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mantell, for being with us tonight. By the way, the McDonald's restaurant has been converted into a memorial in San Ysidro. When Nightly News continues in a moment, the Clarence Thomas controversy. It's gone, but it's not forgotten. George Bush weighs in with more tonight.
At any Choice hotel like quality, comfort, clarion, and sleep, seniors can call ahead and get a 30% discount, no matter where they drop by.
Boy, what I won't do to save a buck.
Seniors save 30% by calling 1-800-4CHOICE to reserve a room. Rooms are limited. Call today.
We want to show you what an American car company can do when we put our minds to it. In 1989, this Dodge Viper was just a concept. In January, it'll be rolling off an assembly line in Detroit, Michigan. Nobody in the country ever developed a car that fast. From now on, every new car Chrysler makes is going to be built the way this one was. And that's by a team. Product and manufacturing engineers, designers, finance guys, and marketers, all working together with one idea, making a great car. And this is where they'll do it, our new billion-dollar Chrysler Technology Center. We'll have 7,000 people here, designing, testing, hand-building prototypes. There's even a pilot factory to get it right before we produce a single car. We've been telling you about Chrysler Advantages for some time now. We've changed this company to give you even higher quality cars, faster, and at lower cost. For those of us who forgot, it's called being competitive.
Some unexpected tension between the U.S. Supreme Court and the White House tonight. Chief Justice William Rehnquist's wife died, so the court wanted to delay the swearing in of Clarence Thomas until next week, but the White House will go ahead with ceremonies tomorrow, and Justice Byron White will administer the oath. NBC's John Cochran is at the White House now, where the whole Thomas controversy still is festering. John?
Tom, although President Bush said today that Clarence Thomas was right to call for healing, the president himself reopened some not-so-old wounds.
Speaking by satellite to AP editors in Detroit, the president said the Senate Judiciary Committee should have listened in private to sexual descriptions.
Anita Hill, as you remember, she didn't want to bring out this graphic detail. And had that graphic detail not been out there, I think the hearing could have been properly done. Her charges could have been properly heard in some executive session. And I don't think the people would have been denied anything that they have a right to know about. I think sometimes when you get to subjects that are that sensitive, it is well to delegate to your elected officials. So I was troubled. I was thinking of my little grandchildren hearing some of the graphic sex allegations, and yet, setting that aside for a minute, I do think there was something sensitizing about the question of sexual harassment.
The president said polls taken after the hearings show the Thomas controversy did not hurt Bush's own popularity among either blacks or women. Bush dismissed women's groups that criticized him and Thomas.
I don't think that these what I think of as the women's groups, feminist groups that were on the television every day berating those that voted the other way, voted for Thomas, I don't think they speak for all the women in this country.
The president said the civil rights bill backed by Democrats does not protect against sexual harassment, as does the White House bill.
Ours is the only one, I believe, that addresses further the question of sexual harassment in the workplace.
Actually, the bill backed by the Democrats does indeed deal with sexual harassment and provides for up to twice the damages permitted in the White House bill. Tom?
Thank you, John. The president met with Republican leaders earlier today on jump-starting the American economy. They'll propose legislation that, among other things, would give tax cuts to the middle class. And the economy does need some help. Consumer prices were up sharply last month, the biggest jump since January. One thing that does seem to be working these days, airbags. A major study out today has proved the experts right. Airbags work. They do save lives. NBC's Robert Hager.
Until today, safety experts had only individual accounts of airbag successes. How New Jersey policeman Andrew Tartaglia walked away from this head-on accident. How both drivers were saved by airbags in this high-speed crash in Virginia. Individual accounts and government projections that lives would be saved based on testing. But now, as the number of airbags on the road has increased dramatically, grown to 4 million over the last 2 years, the first meaningful summary of accidents is in. The insurance industry study of all front-end auto crashes in the last 6 years finds driver deaths 28% fewer in cars with airbags compared to cars without. Moderate to severe injuries 25% fewer in cars with airbags. And hospital admissions after accidents 24% fewer in cars with airbags. Brian O'Neill, whose group gathered the figures.
Some manufacturers still show a little reluctance. They're not quite convinced that the airbags are as good as the safety community has claimed they are. I think these numbers should put those residual concerns to rest.
For years, automakers opposed airbags in spite of tests which showed the forces at work in an accident. Now, suddenly, airbags are big selling points for some. In a new Chrysler ad, 2 stunt drivers smash head-on, but are unhurt. And with the number of airbag-equipped cars likely to double this year alone, and a requirement that will lead to airbags in a majority of passenger-side seats in another 2 years, today's figures indicate there'll be a big impact in the future.
We're going to see a reduction in occupant deaths of several thousand a year.
Which is just what airbag supporters predicted decades ago, but couldn't be supported by real-life statistics until today. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
We're going to chip in and get Bob Hager an umbrella. On Wall Street today, profit-taking pushed stocks down slightly from Wednesday's record high in heavy trading.
This 92-pound woman has the same strength as this 250-pound professional cleaner.
Because now, the same cleaning power that the pros use to clean just about everything is available to me. Introducing Professional Strength Windex. Naturally, it cleans and shines glass, but look how it cleans countertops, greasy stoves, without leaving streaks like all-purpose cleaners can. New Professional Strength Windex. Professional clean, Windex shine, all in one.
I said shake, rattle and roll. Does your washing machine like to dance? When it gets unbalanced, does it strut its stuff instead of cleaning yours? What you need is a strong, silent type, the Frigidaire Horizon 2000. Unlike some washers, it adjusts to unbalanced loads and keeps on running. Frigidaire, clean clothes without the song and dance.
And now get up to $75 cash back on select new appliances from Frigidaire.
Was designed to run like a watch. Just strap it on.
I've got a 6 a.m. flight. I've got to get some Z's.
Nitol safely helps you fall asleep fast so you can get your Z's. Nitol or Maximum Strength Nitol.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day fun ship vacation to the Bahamas, Caribbean, or Mexican Riviera on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Here's a quick check now of some of today's other news. In eastern Washington and Idaho, dozens of fires spread by fierce winds have destroyed more than 100 homes and killed 2 people. Power was knocked out, highways closed, and aerial firefighters grounded by dust storms. A water main break under Grand Central Station turned Midtown Manhattan into a miserable, soggy snarl this morning. The flood shut down 5 subway lines, stranding thousands of commuters in a cold, driving rain. Secretary of State Baker met twice with Israeli Prime Minister Shamir today and planned a meeting with Palestinians, continuing his marathon effort to convene a Middle East peace conference by the end of the month. Gunner's mate Clayton Hartwick was one of 47 sailors killed by the explosion aboard the battleship Iowa 2 years ago. A Navy investigation at that time blamed Hartwick, but today, in about-face, the Navy apologized to Hartwick's family. NBC's Fred Francis at the Pentagon tonight.
The horrific explosion in Gun Turret 2 was one of the worst peacetime tragedies in modern naval history. The Navy first said Hartwig most probably was responsible for the deaths in an act of sabotage-suicide. The evidence was circumstantial. Naval investigators focused their case on Hartwig's relationship with Kendall Truitt, a shipmate, alleging that Hartwig was despondent because the friendship had soured. The Navy also believed that Hartwig was in charge of loading the bags of explosive pellets into the breech of the gun, and in that process slipped a homemade chemical detonator between 2 bags.
Gunner's Mate Second Class Clayton Hartwig was the most likely person to have introduced that detonating device.
But after thousands of tests and the most exhaustive naval investigation ever, the service today admitted it did not know what caused the blast. And in a surprising recantation, the Navy apologized to the Hartwig family.
I am regretting this incident. I'm apologizing for the burden it has caused this family to bear.
Kathy Kubasina led the fight to clear her brother's name.
But you don't really know what has gone through our minds for the past 30 months since they have actually accused him of doing something that he could have never done.
But the Navy's apology does not mean it has ruled out sabotage.
I cannot rule out that there could have been a human intervention. That is one of the possible causes of this accident, but I can't describe for you in any convincing way as to how it took place.
Naval officials say even though they may never know the cause of the tragedy, they are convinced that after the testing and the performance of the 16-inch guns in the Persian Gulf War, the battleship is safe. However, Navy officials still face serious criticism that they maligned a sailor without hard proof, then spent $25 million over 2 years trying to get that proof, finally admitting today that they failed. Fred Francis, NBC News, the Pentagon.
America lost an original today. Tennessee Ernie Ford died after a long illness.
You load the 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter don't.
His 1955 recording of 16 Tons was a huge hit. 20 million sold and still counting. A familiar face in the 50s and 60s, Ford hosted television shows and recorded scores of albums. Known as the Old Pea Picker, Ford was 72 years old when he died.
This neighborhood produces most of our Olympic team stars. It's where you'll find the Emerson Flag Company. They send thousands of flags to the Olympic Games, and for rush orders, they use express mail from the Postal Service. It offers convenient pickup service, guaranteed overnight delivery, plus great low prices, which could help a small company like this have a banner year.
We deliver for you.
Luxurious new Chrysler LeBaron series starting at under $14,000. The perfect balance between self-indulgence and common sense.
Now choose 770 powertrain or 336 bumper-to-bumper protection.
Grandma's got a date. What's a date? That's when you hug someone.
Closeness. You might hesitate if you wore a diaper. So Johnson & Johnson created Serenity Guards, bladder control protection so advanced it holds as much as something 5 times its size and stays dry, locking liquid in.
Grandma, are you gonna hug him? Hug me.
Oh. Give yourself hugs for discovering Serenity from Johnson & Johnson.
Finally, after nearly a century, we came up with a formula with more pain relievers than Bengay. And it's on its way to stores right now from Bengay. New ultra-strength Bengay, the strongest Bengay ever.
I thought all no-stick cooking sprays were just like Pam.
Boy, was I wrong.
Only Pam is all natural with no preservatives. Only Pam.
And Pam adds virtually no fat or calories. For healthier meals.
All natural Pam, a healthier way to cook.
It has been 100 days since Boris Yeltsin was elected president of the Russian Republic, and it's been about 2 months now since the collapse of the coup. Two events that were supposed to clear the way to a new Soviet way of life. However, NBC's Bob Abernathy reports tonight, it's not worked out that way.
At the Kremlin Palace of Congresses, a celebration tonight to honor Boris Yeltsin's first 100 days as president of the Russian Republic. Mikhail Gorbachev, president of the former Soviet Union, has been working on peace in Yugoslavia and other international issues. But on Moscow's streets as winter approaches, this is the reality. A well-organized line for sugar. This woman has places 476 and 477. Another woman and her mother have waited a day and a half. No wonder no one gives way to anyone trying to crash the line. With ration coupons, you get about 3 pounds per month per person if you can find the sugar.
The near future, I don't think, will be better.
There's also a sense of drift here, of no one being in charge. 40% of the people now tell pollsters they want more authoritarian rule. When the coup collapsed last August, so did the central government. Most republics declared themselves independent and began keeping products they used to deliver to others. At Moscow's Progress Electric factory, there are only 6 of the usual 40 workers on an assembly line for extension cords. Reason? A shortage of wire from Kazakhstan and the Ukraine. 10 republics had been scheduled to sign a treaty of economic cooperation tomorrow, but today the productive Ukraine pulled out. For now, one more setback for reform.
In my judgment, since the day of the coup, the day the coup failed, there hasn't really been any real progress in this country, economically or politically. And I say that despite the fact that I am also absolutely convinced that the people at the top of this government are all committed to reform.
Committed, but so far ineffective. National income is down 13%. The grain harvest, 26%. Prices are going up about 100% a year, and the country needs Western food aid of $10 billion. But in spite of everything, there's still a classically Russian ability to hope.
If we survive World War II, we can survive this.
As bad becomes worse, hope is essential, of course, but especially for the old, the sick, and the very young. Foreign aid and a mild winter would help, too. Bob Abernathy, NBC News, Moscow.
That's Nightly News for this Thursday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. Jane Pauley will be here tomorrow night. I'll see you again on Monday.
The murder.
We saw somebody get killed.
The mystery.
It was covered up like it never happened.
The man.
Mr. Matlock?
The movie.
I was going after the truth.
Their only crime was being a witness.
2 of my friends are dead.
Their only prayer is Matlock.
You're the real killer, aren't you?
All new Matlock, all new night. The Witness Killings, NBC Friday.
Tomorrow, Danny DeVito, Barbara Eden, Don Henley, and Andy Griffith. Matlock's back with Brian Gumbel and Katie Couric tomorrow on Today.